So the last item for Module 1 that I'd like to show is using the system settings. There are two ways to get to the system settings. One way is using the touch and hold macro to open up a context menu that allows you to enter the system settings. I'm just going to show a quick demo of how to do that by projecting my screen. So here's a projection of one of my screens. If I touch and hold, I can get this context menu, and then I can click Show System Settings to get to that menu, or to get to the system settings. Another way is to open it in browser by using the IP address. In case you can't remember the IP address, you can obtain it from one of these Manage Target or download the target windows. Select the panel that you want to use and just copy it. So then in my browser, I can type in https:// the IP address /machine_config, and this will allow me to access the system settings. I will need to sign in using a password that is set to admin username, admin password by default, but it is possible to change that. So from here, I now have access to the system settings. I can change the language. I can look at the build date, things like how long the unit has been on. I can extract the logs. I can configure the date and time. I can configure my network or my Ethernet ports. So if I click Edit here, I can turn DHCP on or off. And while it's off, I'm able to enter in a static IP address. If I click on services, I see a lot of things here that you might want to use, such as VNC, which is what I was just using to project my screen. SSH, which would allow us to open up a shell with something like PuTTY or use FTP. Or a cloud service, which is how we configure and use Corvina. So I have my Corvina credentials here, and you can see that I'm connected with this IP address. Corvina is something that we would cover in an advanced training. Also, we have just an interface for our plugins. If I had the plugin modules mounted onto the back, I could see those here. Management. This is where we can see what BSP version we're running, and it could also be updated from here. I'm also able to click this data tab and wipe everything off of my unit here if I need to. Restart would just allow me to restart in config mode or recovery mode if I ever needed to do that. And finally, authentication just allows me to change the username and password that I use to access this screen. So really, that's it for the system settings. I just have the website open here, and it's something that I think we'll look at the end. But really, that's it for Module 1. The items for Module 1 were creating a project, changing the project type, that means the screen size, adding protocols, we added variables, Modbus, and codices, adding and importing tags, connecting to the HMI, downloading the project, and downloading runtime, using Managed Target interface, using the simulator, including offline and online simulations, and accessing the system settings. So I see we have at least one question here, and we'll take a break for a couple minutes to answer the question. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to ask them, mostly for the topics that we covered already. Module 2 is about widgets and properties, and Module 3 is about creating events and pages. So if you have questions about anything for those topics, we'll probably cover them coming up. So for the first question, why would I use the PLC network approach versus adding multiples of the same protocol? You would use PLC network if your multiple PLCs are using the same project, and by using the same project, that means they're using the same tag database. So really, the reason that we have a limitation on the number of our protocols is because each protocol has a unique tag database, and those tag databases can take up a large amount of memory. So if you have PLC projects that are using, or PLCs that are running the same project, you would use the same tags, and you would be writing to the same tags on different PLCs at the same time. However, it's possible you would need to use two different PLCs that happen to be using the same type of protocol with different tag databases and different projects. And in that case, you would want to actually add multiple instances of the same protocol, and you'd be able to control those PLCs separately. And that would use up two or potentially more than two of your 4 external protocols. So does that kind of clear up the difference between PLC network and multiples of the same protocol?
It does, thanks.
Okay, sure. And that's a good question.